Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Earthen's Den. I just kind of want to share my opinions, in regards to this whole narcissistic community or movement or whatever. I see a lot of people who say things like, everybody's not a narcissist, like your ex wasn't a narcissist, blah, blah, blah. I think what happens is when we start to get an understanding of things, then we can start to identify what that actually was. Now, I do think that does kind of go overboard, right? Just because of the culture that we live in. A lot of people are just so sensitive. It's like if you say one wrong thing, then we kind of mislabel and misjudge. But I think that that's just life. I don't even think that that's even just necessarily the day in which we're living today. But what I found when this whole narcissistic thing, it's really rooted in victimization. Somebody did something to you, so now you go around doing certain things to others, and you really don't feel bad about it, and you're not able to self-reflect and be aware of it because you have someone who is affirming your behavior. And I've typically found this to be with parents. I feel like sometimes people's parents will come and nurture and coddle them, maybe because I personally think that the parent wasn't there in the child's life. So I feel like the parent comes and just, overcompensates in so many ways. And it's well up into adulthood. You know what I mean? It's well up into adulthood. And so when you have somebody who's backing you, right? Somebody who, of course, knows you best, supposedly, right? You have somebody who's backing you on every decision that you make, whether it be right or wrong. You're never really being held accountable, right? Because our parents are the ones who are responsible, especially when we're growing up, and nobody's ever told you, hey, what you did was wrong. That wasn't okay. You know what I mean? When you have somebody who's always validating that, and especially in regards to your relationships with others, I've seen, parents will, just continuously congratulate their kid, you know what I mean? Always be in a space where it's like, they're, applauding this child when the truth is that this child is in the wrong, and even in adulthood, right? And I definitely think it's because, parents come from that nurturing motherly thing, but I really feel like it's rooted in something deeper than that. Maybe the parent just kind of feels like they have no one else, you know what I mean? So then this child is really put on this pedestal, right? And it's like a overbreeding sensation in regards to love. And sometimes I found it too, when a parent has a certain relationship or had a relationship like in the past where things didn't work out or something was, done that wasn't necessarily right or just to the parent, then they kind of just overcompensate, you know what I mean, in regards to just thinking everybody is bad. And I think that's also where you kind of have that strong mother. I do typically feel like it is in regards to mothers. I don't necessarily think it's necessarily in regards to fathers. I don't think I've ever seen that because mothers are so loving and so nurturing. So that's like two things right there. But I really feel like in regards to narcissism, it is a big thing. And I think when we talk about who you attract, now I don't necessarily believe that you always attract what you are, being that, light can sometimes attract dark. Like it is what it is. It's just energy and it's transferable. If you're a radiant person, typically a lot of people are going to gravitate towards you, especially if you're in leadership or if you, depending on the work that you do, it is what it is. So I don't necessarily think that you always attract that, but I do think that you have to kind of ask yourself, if you are typically attracting this person, what is it? I believe that in regards to narcissistic behavior, it's typically because you are insecure. Because what narcissism there is definitely the whole thing of the love bombing. I think that part is definitely relevant in regards to just my own little research studies and, just kind of seeing things. And when I say research studies, I'm talking about listening to psychologists who are certified, who are, accredited in their fields, and who've been studying it, right? So when I look at a whole generalization in regards to the conversations they have around narcissism, love bombing is definitely one of the main signs or whatever of it. And it's a real thing. And so it kind of makes sense. And then what happens is, I can't really say that it's intentional. I think what happens is when you get with a person, right, they're doing everything that their parent or whoever is, striking this in them does to them. And sometimes I see that it is with friends as well. If you have friends around you who are just yes men, they like, oh yeah, no, I want you. Oh yeah, nah. You know what I mean? It's really hard to be held accountable. Now me, I'm on the complete opposite side of this whole thing. And I'm not saying that to say, oh, I'm here, I'm just speaking from my experience. And for me, it was completely different. I was always criticized. So, for me, I did have that eroded self-esteem where I had to kind of just like build myself back up, but it also taught me to be more compassionate and be more flexible in regards to the way I was behaving, right? So it's a little different, but yeah, like I see it all the time. And so I definitely think that bores this victimization type of mentality, because when you come and tell your parent, like, oh, something happened to me, they're like, oh, no, this isn't that. When the truth was that, what did you do to that person? Now, is that always the case? Of course not. Sometimes people just wrong us and it was their intentions, and that is what it is. But I just feel like sometimes when certain things happen, it's like this person just kind of goes out and, you know what I mean? I think another thing too, the opposite side of like the whole narcissism thing, everybody's not a narcissist in the sense of some people really are just self-aware. I think when you have a person who does not want to look within themselves, like I don't necessarily think that makes them a narcissist. And I don't really know if even like narcissism is primarily based on like lack of self-awareness or lack of acknowledgement, or is it just like based on resistance and reluctance, you know, in regards to that? Like, so I don't really know the difference entirely, which I should, because I'm making this podcast, but I'm just like, you know, kind of just talking about it and I guess opening the door for it a little bit. But yeah, so I definitely think that there's a strong level of just lack of self-awareness, and this victim mentality is birthed in that, because you don't think that you ever do anything wrong. You think that you can do things to people and you're always affirmed that you're a great person. So what happens is, you know, when you do something that, you know, triggers another person, or, you know, you do something that wasn't really okay, but since nobody's ever held you accountable, when someone says, you know what, hey, they react, you like, oh, you know, why are you saying that to me? But it was like, look at what you just did, right? And in regards to self-awareness too, like, especially in regards to relationships, like maybe they really are a narcissist. Like maybe they really just don't care about you. I think that's another thing we have to stop, like, just overusing and abusing. You know, I really feel like it's time to like normalize breakups. It's time to like, the thing is, when you got with the person, maybe you didn't have this newfound knowledge of like self-awareness and therapy and all of these resources that help you connect with yourself. And so as you grow and ascend, yeah, you're changing, and certain things that this person is doing or doesn't fit anymore, and that's okay. Like, it's time to just let it go. You know, I think everybody is on their own journey, and what we just fail to realize time and time again is it's okay to just, you know, some people really are seasonal. It's okay to let it go. You know what I mean? And I think that is the part where we have to start living in our truth of who we are and our strength and individuality. Now, I'm not pushing for anybody to just be alone and just to live your own life and to never be in a sense of community. But what I am pushing for is for people to be in healthy relationships, you know, and for us to be seen and for us to be heard and for us to be understood and respected in relationships, period. You know what I mean? And I think that's the biggest thing. So, you know, it's all about you and your non-negotiables and the things that are a must for you. But I definitely think as I dissect and look back at the whole idea of narcissism, you know, overall in total, it's definitely, it has a lot to do with lack of self-awareness and continuously being assured for your bad behavior, you know, and rewarded for your bad behavior. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know how that kid would act up in school, right? And like their parent would come in to the class and like cuss the teacher out, when we all just saw this boy jump off the desk and like do a backflip and throw a pencil at, like, you know what I mean? And the mom is cussing out the teacher. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm like, I think when we think about it in a like a STEM sense, you know what I mean? Like, it's something that the parents are typically dealing with, or I personally feel like trying to compensate for. Maybe it's lost time, maybe it's, you know what I mean, it's neglect, abandonment, whatever, that wasn't given. I think that they try to make up for that. And so what happens is you do have older adults who have no empathy, no care, no compassion for another person, and they have no idea why, you know, and when they look at relationships, they typically say, oh, it's just this one person, or, oh, you know, they have this idea about it and why it doesn't work out, and it's never really based on their own self-reflection and in them looking at with themselves and saying, you know what, okay, actually, it's me, you know what I mean, or actually, this is what I'm doing, you know, typically it's like, oh, this person's doing that, you know what I mean, so I think it's just, you know, it's something that's just heavily based on, like, you know, just experiences, you know, and what was rooted. But like I said, not everybody's a narcissist, but I just wanted to get on here and kind of share my personal breakdown of this, because it's such a widespread conversation that is going around centered on this topic and just this type of person. So that was just my opinion, but I definitely think the love bombing thing is super major, and it can be very evident. Now, I would say, in regards to like knowing the difference between like love bombing and somebody who's just genuinely interested in you, it all really boils down to your intuition. Like, I think it's just so important to just be in that space where you just, you're in tune with your feelings, you're in tune with yourself, and how you trust yourself in regards to what you know. You know what I mean? And the truth is that you're never really wrong. Like I said, I think when it comes to social media, it's got so many people who are who are no longer relying on their own thoughts, their own feelings. It's really based in, the validation from other people, other sources. And I think that's where it gets very tricky, because you could have a person who may look a certain type of way, but that this person is not what society would actually, consider this person to be. But since you're on social media, you're no longer relying on that feeling. And it's like with socials and with all the noise and distraction, we kind of tune out our own intuition and our own true feelings to the point where we no longer know what we're feeling and what we're hearing. And I do think that sometimes can also bore, I ain't gonna really say narcissism. I think it's just maybe like a sense of self-centeredness, you know what I mean? Because it's like, I'm only thinking about me, how I feel, you know what I mean? This is what I know to be true, and you're not really relying on that. But of course, that goes back into, like I said, knowing who you are. I said that in the last podcast episode. Knowing who you are as a person will make all the difference in regards to that as well. So those are just my those are just my thoughts in regards to narcissism and things like that. And this was great. I really enjoyed this podcast. Those are things that I've just definitely thought about in regards to that, and just kind of what I felt. So, okay, you guys, I'm going to leave everybody with their thoughts.